How many of you remember as kids running away from home for the afternoon, or playing tag, climbing a tree, or just throwing the ball around with friends for hours? At some point, although vastly different for each of us, play showed up in our lives. It seemed natural, effortless. And then, some point along the way, it stopped. But what exactly is play? For me, play isn't some pastime or game. For me, play is anything done for its own sake, not to produce anything, but to bring energy, curiosity, joy, and connection to the present moment. There's a name that you might be familiar with, Mr. Fred Rogers. And he once said that for kids, play is serious learning. But what if, for adults, play is serious living? And there's a reason why last year the United Nations declared June the 11th the International Day of Play, with over 140 countries as partners, affirming play as a global right. And that day isn't just for kids, and it doesn't have to be celebrated only once a year, because at the core of humanity, play might be one of the purest ways that we learn, connect, and grow. Yet, as adults, something shifts. Every moment feels like it has to be justified by output, where worth becomes measured by efficiency instead of curiosity. We've traded playgrounds for boardrooms. But here's what I've come to believe. In order to thrive as adults, we have to go back to who we were as kids, because play isn't wasted time. It might just be the reset needed to enjoy the work. And maybe that way forward is through intentional, meaningful play. When was the last time that you did something that might be thought of as childlike or even foolish? Not long ago, my partner, our pup, and I, we went to the lake. And when we got there, I saw a magnolia tree. And for me, magnolias are some of the best trees to climb. So I made a beeline for it. And as I was climbing, a family walked by. And the parents, they looked confused, maybe even a little concerned. But the daughter, she looks up and she yells, "Climb higher!" Play is often seen as something that we grow out of, a distraction, something that no longer fits into adult life. But here's what can happen when staying in that mindset. When play disappears, creativity, joy, and connection are at risk too. And adulthood can quickly become defined by hustle culture, where worth is tied to how busy someone looks. But the research on play tells a very different story. In a 2024 Psychology Today article, it states that play fuels creativity, imagination, and problem-solving abilities, and even creates a deep sense of community in adults. At Google, employees were encouraged to spend 20% of their time on playful, creative side projects. And from those side projects were some tools created that you might be familiar with, Gmail and Google Maps. And as I kept digging into the research on play, I came across a statement that absolutely fascinated me. And it was a quote by Dr. Stuart Brown, who is the founder of the National Institute for Play. And he once said that the opposite of play isn't work. The opposite of play is depression. And if you think about it, that makes sense. Without play, curiosity dulls, imagination fades, and joy slips away. Play is often mistaken as an action, a hobby, a game, a sport. But what if it's something bigger? I like to think of play as an environment. One of the things I created was a box full of random craft materials. No instructions, no rules, no directions. You just take everything inside the box and you just make whatever you want. Let your imagination soar. And when I handed these boxes out to kids, they dove right in. They built, they invented, they laughed. And I've seen a lot of kid creations, anywhere from robot houses to dragon puppets to things that I can't even make sense of, but it makes sense to them. But when I handed these same boxes out to adults, something different happened. They froze. They hesitated. They even asked, what am I supposed to make? And that hesitation revealed something to me. Kids, they already seem to live in this environment of play. But for most of the adults that I've met, that space seems harder to find. So what creates that environment? From what I've found, there are 4 ingredients: safe, curious, open-ended, and probably the most important: people. Play thrives when it's shared. It's the laughter that binds us. It's the spark of creativity between people. It's what interrupts a heads-down world and invites us to look up together. So if the question is how to bring play back into adult life, maybe it's by starting with something simple, something small, something intentional. I do what I call my take 5. And it's where I disconnect from the busyness of life for just 5 minutes. I shift my energy and I make space for creativity. I've been a drummer since I was 11 years old, and I've always kept a drum kit set up somewhere in my house. And so sometimes my take 5 is me sitting behind those drums and just playing. I'm not playing along to songs. The beats, they don't even have to make sense. It's just me and the drums. No emails, no distractions, no expectations. Just playing. So let's go back for a moment to when the world was a playground. And when that giant oak tree was a rocket ship. And that row of bushes beside your childhood home was a secret, unknown world. For kids, play seems to come effortlessly. But for adults, it's often analyzed, justified, or even avoided. What was once instinctive has now become lost in the noise of schedules and obligations. But rediscovering play isn't about going backwards. It's about reclaiming the most human part of life. The spark that makes creativity possible. The curiosity that drives collaboration, and the energy that gives leadership purpose. Because if play can shape childhood so powerfully, imagine what it could unlock for adulthood. So if the thought of bringing more play back into life feels like something that's worth exploring, that inspiration could look different for each one of us. Perhaps it shows up in an improv class, or making something with your hands, or taking on a new hobby, or simply in the freedom to be curious without attaching it to productivity. So I'm going to leave you with this question. What would happen if you gave yourself permission to play? Thank you.